Absolutely nothing beats windshield time, a road trip, and good conversation in the car. Welcome to another episode of Dan the Road Trip Guy, where we have entertaining conversations about cars and road trips, life lessons, and maybe every now and then a little advice. I'm your host, Dan Neal, road trip extraordinaire, and now buckle up and enjoy the show. I am on a virtual road trip today with my guest. His name is Mike Martin. He is from Northern Kentucky area, so we live pretty close to one another. But we're on a virtual trip today. He's in Indianapolis, and I'm here in Cincinnati. I met Mike, like I've met a few of my guests, on One Lap of America several years back. He came, and he actually did quite well, and we'll talk about that during the show. Mike grew up in a family business that his grandfather started and has just recently retired. I'm excited to talk to Mike. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here with you. Looking forward to doing your show with you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you taking the time, and I know you're kind of on an outing today, so even more appreciate it. I'd like to start this off with... and you'll appreciate this, just take a warm-up lap, if you will, for a couple minutes or a minute, and just tell my listeners who you are before we dive into the details.
Oh, well, probably like you. I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm a wonderful family, my wife and three beautiful children. They're all grown now, and a grandchild. You know, I worked all my life for my family business. I just retired a couple years from that, worked there 41 years. Yeah, I'm just kind of enjoying the retired life right now. I'm in Indianapolis at the Mecum car auction, so it's a fun day with some friends. So pretty much where I'm at right now.
Well, thanks for sharing that. So we'll just head on down the road here and spend a little bit of time together. But tell me about your very first car way back when.
Oh, well, my dad's company had a very big contract with Ford. Kind of like in the immortal words of Henry Ford, you can have any car you want as long as it's a Ford. And I did get a black one. I got a Ford Mustang. My dad insisted that I get a manual transmission, and I couldn't have air conditioning. I was lucky to get the Mustang because my older brother, unfortunately, was dealt the Pinto. We quickly discovered that was not the car to get a second time, so I was lucky there. Even though it was the ugly oil embargo era of cars, a 77 Mustang, it actually had a 302 V8 in it with a whopping 120 horsepower. So, but, you know, I was glad to have it when you're 17 years old, basically having a Ford Mustang. I was very happy. So it was my first car.
Yeah. What color was the interior?
It actually had this, like, we called it a gold velour. It was a cloth, but it was like a gold color. So the car was black with a gold pinstripe and just like a gold accent. So it was really, you know, for the time, a nice car. It was the hatchback, but was not the notchback, which was, you know, they called the Charlie's Angels car. I didn't have that one, luckily. Yeah, it was kind of cool. It just was very slow with a big engine in it. But no, I was, like I said, I was very happy to have that car.
Yeah,
so
and that was probably a 4-speed on the floor.
Yes, a 4-speed. And, you know, it's funny, you talk about manual transmissions. I think I was listening to one of your other podcasts, and the guest was felt the same thing. His first car was a manual, and I had nobody to teach me how to drive that thing. My dad didn't drive a manual, and I just kind of figured it out. You know, I guess I didn't tear up a clutch. I don't remember any problems, but I did. We talked about motorcycles. I did know how to ride motorcycles, so I think that helped quite a bit because the controls are pretty much the same.
Yeah, for sure.
Jumped in it and took off.
Yeah, I always love to hear, particularly guys who are a little more, or guys and women who are older, because they usually have some really fun older car stories. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So take me on in your lifetime, any epic road trips, maybe funny road trips that just stand out in your mind? And I know you've been on a few one laps, and those are definitely epic road trips, but anything else maybe with the family or?
I did do a really great vacation about 6 or 7 years ago. I've been to California a few times, and you go there and either you go to LA or San Francisco, and you go along the Pacific Coast Highway. It's so beautiful, but you always got to turn around, and come back to your hotel. So I said, I'm going to do a trip where I'm going to land at LA and slowly go up the Pacific Coast Highway and just leave from San Francisco. That was really fun. I was with my two boys and my wife. We just drove a SUV, but it was really fun. We stopped at the Hearst Castle and Monterey and Carmel by the Sea and, of course, San Francisco. And we even went a little further north up into the Redwoods. And that was a lot of fun, family trip, and got to just take our time going up the Pacific Coast Highway.
Any troubles on that trip, or just went as planned?
Oh, yeah, just everything went as planned. I think driving the SUV kept me in check with my boys in it. I had to be a good dad. But it's kind of funny, though. We got to the airport, and I'm picking up the SUV, and, Hertz likes to show off those Porsche 911s. And I said to my wife, I said, we could rent two cars. She kind of gave me the look like, no, that's not happening.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, speaking of one lap, we talked about one lap. That's how I met you. How many one laps have you done?
I've done 3 complete one laps. I did enter a 4th one, which unfortunately I had to withdraw from. I had some car issues, but I did 2 of them with a really good friend of mine, Michael Trevor. And I actually recommend you reaching out to Michael. He's very involved with the concours and really great guy, knows everything about cars. And he was wonderful, man. I always tell everybody he treated me like an F1 driver on that one lap. I mean, he would get my breakfast for me. He had the car all cleaned. It was just a great time. And as you know, all the hours of driving, to picking the right partner in the one lap is very important. And Michael was a great co-driver, and he was my autocross guy. I'm terrible at autocross, and I think he cracked, a 12th or 13th, and highly competitive that autocross field is. So he got me through the autocross, and I think we managed to finish in the top 10 both times, which is pretty good in that group of field. And this is the 3rd time I did it. I actually got to do it with Ross Bentley. Are you familiar with Ross?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. You got some coaching then along the way, probably, right?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to coach in the one lap, because we only get those 3-lap time trials. But Ross had a lot of great advice. He was just a wonderful guy, and I didn't even really know him, so it was kind of a gamble. But I figured, being a world-class coach, he's obviously got some good communication skills, and he was just a great guy. We talked about everything, not just about cars, but he actually coaches other types of athletes too, and racket sports and things you just wouldn't think about. And so, yeah, it was a great time. We finished in the top 10 again, and it was a great event. We just sailed through it, didn't have any issues, and it was another great one lap.
Yeah, and finishing in the top 10 might not sound spectacular to people who don't know what one lap is, but if you finish in the top 10, you've had a pretty good week.
Yeah, that's for sure. I always tell people, the first 20 or so positions is some pretty serious drivers. Everybody's wanting that top 10, and sometimes you pull a 15th out, but sometimes you pull a 5th out. I always say if you can just finish in the top 10 every event, you're definitely going to be in the top 10. You might get a top 5. So yeah, it's very competitive.
Well, congratulations on those, and we hope to see you back there again someday.
Okay, I will. Definitely will do that again.
I remember seeing photos of you, and I asked you about this yesterday when we were chatting a little bit, but I remember seeing photos on social media of you on a motocross bike. And I was like, I wonder if Mike raced motocross. And so you told me yesterday you did. Take a minute and tell us about how you got started in motocross and what that was like.
Oh, that was a lot of fun. My neighbor friend across the street, his dad bought him a little Yamaha Mini Enduro 60, and basically I pestered my dad until he bought me something, and he got me a little Honda 50. Within probably 3 years, I was racing a Suzuki RM 120 or Suzuki 250, actually, RM 250. I spent about the next 6 or so years racing motocross. You just couldn't get me off that bike. I just loved it. Raced, I was pretty successful locally, as what you would call a local hot shoe. I'd always podium a local race. But then it would get, that pyramid when you get to the regionals and qualifiers, that pyramid gets quite a bit tough, just like the one lap. So I was kind of in the middle of the pack guy in the qualifiers for the national events. But so I knew I wasn't going to really make a career of it, but I had a lot of fun. Raced, like I said, about 6 years, and I had all kinds of cool bikes. I really love the European bikes, the Makos and the KTMs. Actually had a Can-Am for a couple years. And yeah, that was kind of like the first taste of motorsports where I kind of, got bit with the bug of motorsports racing. And I was just really a car racing fan. I couldn't afford to race a car or anything, but I living here close to Indy, I would always, make the trip to Indy and watch Indy 500. I just never thought someday I may actually be racing on that track. And that was a lot of fun too.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that also. But hey, you told me the other day, I never really knew what you did. And we were standing at Putnam Raceway Park the other day. And I said, what'd you do for a living? And you shared that you're part of a family business that your grandfather started. Just take a little bit and share with us, what that was about and how you got started in that and what that was like working with your family.
Oh, well, my dad, my dad really built that company up. Unfortunately, my grandfather did start the business, but unfortunately, he passed away pretty young. So my dad inherited that business at the age of 25. My dad was a CB in the Navy in World War II. CBs basically are contractors in the Navy, and my dad quickly realized, being a CB, what the military needed as far as not just guns and tanks and stuff, but all kinds of equipment. And my grandfather had this little, basically, of I don't know, my dad called it a downspout shop. We're just making little downspouts and gutters. And he when he come back from the war, he got my grandfather to get some more industrial metal fabrication equipment and go after some of these military contracts. And sure enough, they got a real early start in that field. And it was anything industrial, not just military, medical, energy, transportation. Like I said, he had a nice contract with Ford. We would repair and modify Ford transmission shipping racks. So the shop was very equipped. We have laser cutters and water jet cutters, robotic welding, every type of welding you could imagine, MIG, TIG, press brakes, these big press brakes that would form the metal. My dad was he liked new technology, and he was one of the first shops with CNC. So in the old days, if you had to punch a 1/4 inch diameter hole, you had one die, and boom, then you change the die, you cut the 1/2 inch hole. And CNC opened up an avenue to speed that process up, and luckily my dad captured that equipment pretty early in its infancy, and we had very fast machines early, and it gave us a good head start in the field. Now, of course, everybody has them, but I always knew, from even being a child, I go into that shop and say, I'm going to work here. I just thought it was so cool, with the sparks, and the plasma and the fork trucks rolling around and these big sheets of metal. And I'm like, man, this is I knew what my career was going to be at a very young age. And I ended up working there 41 years. And it was a very great ride. It was like a small company, family owned, and it was just part of my family, basically. The employees were my best friends. I really enjoyed my career there. It was really nice.
A lot of longtime employees, probably.
Oh, yeah. We've had very low turnover. And what was a great compliment to me was when we did have a guy quit, a lot of people, it's not bad. I think the grass is greener and they moved to somewhere else. And almost every person I ever saw that did that said, man, I should have just stayed where I was at. And that was always a great compliment to me, that, these people realized that it was a good company to work for. And I was proud of that.
Yeah. What was the name of it?
Well, that's kind of a good question. My grandfather named it Cincinnati Ventilating Company. So the company was originally in Cincinnati, and he did do ventilating and HVAC and stuff. But like I said, my dad kind of converted it to the industrial metal fabrication. He ended up moving it to Florence, Kentucky in the early 60s. In Florence there was the industrial park. It's still there.
Okay.
He got a good deal on being one of the first companies. It was 1963 to move to Florence, Kentucky. So we kind of advertised the company as CVC Metal Specialties, but our accountant really recommended we keep our name, our original name, because we had such a good reputation. So we just, followed his advice. But when we advertise it, we would just advertise it CVC Metal Specialties.
Okay. Where was it located in Cincinnati? Do you remember?
Yes, it was probably right about where the Paul Brown Stadium's at. I would say it was right on the banks of the river, and it wasn't there for long. I believe Castellini pretty much bought that out. And I think my grandfather did pretty well on that. And what's funny is he moved the company right across the river to Covington on 3rd and Madison. So they had a good spot. It was a nice flat spot and plenty of room. And that only lasted about 2 or 3 years. And then the IRS bought them out.
Oh, wow.
So,
which they just,
the IRS
tore it all down, right? I was by there the other night.
Yeah, the IRS is gone now too. But after that buyout, that's when my dad moved it to Florence, Kentucky. So kind of just kept moving south.
Oh, fun story. I love hearing about, businesses that started decades ago by, first generation, and then it's gone second and third. And I think you told me it's got some fourth generation working there now. So
yes, my brother's son is now the actual owner and president of the company. My brother bought me out about 3 years ago. Basically, his son is running the business now, and so that's the fourth generation there, and he's got a son too, so maybe they'll go 5.
Yeah, wow, that's super cool. What's on your bucket list? I mean, you've been a lot of places. You've raced some cars. What else is left?
Oh, it's a good question. I've been very fortunate. I've gotten to, go to F1 races. I've gotten to go to Super Bowls. I've lived a very fortunate life. Really, right now in my retirement, I just like traveling. And what I like is not really having, just a set like, oh gosh, I got to see the Eiffel Tower. It's like, I've seen it,
Right.
I just like going to Europe. We're going to Germany next month. A friend of mine's picking up a new Porsche in Stuttgart, and I'm going to rent a little BMW Z4. I don't even know where we're going. I know we'll be going through the Alps and just driving through Europe and just exploring Europe, and just as my buddy says, we're just going to chase the weather. We're just going to go where the weather's nice, and that's where we end up. So we don't even really make too many reservations. We just, we'll definitely drive the Alps. We did this in 2018. It cracked me up because actually had rented a Porsche Cayman. He signed us up for a spa track day. In Europe, they're a lot more casual about a track day. Here in the States, there's you filling out all the forms and everything. And I just drove into Spa, and I'm in a Porsche, and I had my helmet with me, and I just drove on the race course. It's like there was no driver's meeting or anything. It's just like I guess they would black flag you if you're messing up.
Yeah, right.
But so yeah, I was just doing laps around Spa, and I really had no intention of doing that. And I'm like, well, this is fun. Yeah, that's the way we travel. Sometimes we luck out and have a wonderful day or two like that, and sometimes it's we might be raining and we're in a bowling alley. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. Just take it as it comes, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
Now,
like that.
have you driven the Nuremberg
No, actually, I'm afraid of that thing. I've driven that thing on a simulator, and I can barely get around at one time without
Yeah,
going off. It's just so big. If I lived there and had a couple months to really study the course, I would do it. But I just, no, I would definitely, if I would just do a ring taxi. I would just let one of those guys take me for a
sure.
ride around it, and I would be very happy with that because I definitely don't want to go off. You know that.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Here's a question for you. If you could take a road trip today, you're heading out with anyone, living or deceased, who would it be? Where would you go? What would you drive? Maybe that Mustang, right?
Yeah.
Maybe one of those
No.
911s. Yeah, tell me about that.
Um, you gave me a heads up on that question, and I'm going to have to go the easy way out. I thought about a lot of people, and of course, family. I've got the ride with my family, but I think a really cool person would be Paul McCartney.
Okay. Well, that's a first. That's a first on Day on the Road Trip guy. I've not had anybody tell me that. So tell me more.
Well, way back in 2005, when I got my first Corvette, I was on the Corvette forum, and somebody posted a photograph of Paul McCartney in a C5, and they were kind of making jokes like, "Oh, Paul McCartney doesn't even have the newest Corvette yet." Well, get this: about a month or so ago, I saw a photo someone had taken of Paul McCartney in that same C5 Corvette. He just kind of keeps that. I think it's a California car for him. He's got a place in California, and he's had the C5 Corvette. So, he likes a sports car, but he doesn't have to have the latest Ferrari or Lamborghini. So I think that's kind of neat that he's kind of planted, he's got what he needs. And he just seems to be like a genuine guy, for being probably the most famous person in the world. And could you imagine that if you're riding down the road and Drive My Car comes on the radio and he just starts singing along to that? That would be so cool.
That would be kind of fun. Do you think there a question in your mind that you might ask him?
Oh gosh, I would just want to hear the stories,
Yeah.
surely he's met everybody, and whatever would come to mind, the obvious questions, from the Beatles to just people he's played music with. To I'd like to know about his Corvette,
Yeah.
why he has a Corvette after 20 years, in the C5,
Yeah.
and some of the cars he might have owned.
You've been a lot of places. You've raced cars. You've worked in the family business. If you could leave people with one or two pieces of advice, what would you tell people?
Well, working all those years in our business, I think the best thing to do is to surround yourself with the best people. It can be difficult sometimes. Sometimes people you think are really good people aren't so great, and sometimes the people you don't think are so great are good. It's just their personality. Some people are quiet, and when you work with people, you spend a lot of time with them, and That was one part of the business that was probably the hardest part, was the hiring part, the interviewing process and everything. And I think just basically finding people that are like-minded and want to work hard and be successful, want to be very dedicated to what they're doing, that are ambitious. Those are the kind of people I like to be around. And people that just enjoy life. It's like this, we only get one shot at this thing, so let's make the most of it.
That's great advice, Mike. Thank you. So you're at an auction today. You're at a car auction. Are you buying cars or are you just watching?
No, I'm just here. My friend here, actually, he's a Wagoneer fan, and he's looking at these Wagoneers. I'm kind of looking at them kind of funny, but everybody likes their own thing. No, I'm just here just to have some fun with my friends. I actually prefer modern cars. A lot of these muscle cars are really cool. I wish I was a bit more handy with a wrench. I might like to have an older car, but that would be kind of embarrassing having to take it to a Chevy, dealership to have my 69 Corvette worked on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, wrap up here, and really, I just appreciate you taking the time. I know you left the auction, went out and sat in the Escalade to talk to me, but when I ran into you last week, I was like, I just got to talk to him because I'd put you on my list. I have this long list of people, and I draw names out of who to talk to next. But then when I ran into you, I was like, okay, it's time. And
that's very nice. I really enjoyed being on the podcast, and I really appreciate the work you do with the One Lap. I know it's just such a great group of people. I mean, like I said, the part about surrounding yourself with great people. All those people on the One Lap of America, they would drop anything to help you. It's like whenever there's a situation, those Toyota guys, are they amazing or what?
They are absolutely amazing. Yeah.
They just go so far out of their way to help everybody. I mean, they helped that Tesla. I don't think that Tesla would have finished the event if it wasn't for them, and the Tesla got second place. They were a direct competitor to their Toyota, which finished, I think, fifth, one of their Toyotas. And, basically, they could have let that guy not finish the event. And no, they're going to help them out. So there's an example of some very fine people to surround yourself around.
Hey, wrap up, Mike. Anything you want to give a shout out to? Charity, business?
I'll give a shout out to Dan Neal and his podcast to tell everybody I've listened to some of them and they're really entertaining. So that's who my shout out will be Danny Neal and his podcast. And check it out, everybody. It's a lot of fun.
Well, thanks for that. I appreciate that. Until we meet up again, you can find me on the internet at dantheroadtripguy.com. I hope you will follow this podcast so that you don't miss any upcoming episodes, and share it with your family and friends so that they can enjoy the stories of my guests also. Until we meet again on a future episode, keep having conversations with each other and keep driving.